All right, and we're back with another PCBH Corner, and this is a continuation of a tradition that we're trying to keep going. And this is our third time doing it. We did it last year, and then I think we did it in 2021.
Yep.
Going into 2022. And this is basically something that we encourage everybody to do as the end of the year and the beginning of a new one. It provides almost like a stimulus control, a prompting to stop, reflect on the previous year, and then trying to set some intentionality with the coming year, kind of goals and hopes. And it's always fun for us to do this because then we get to go back and watch the video that we made last year and how many times we're like, oh my gosh, like we were able to do that, check that off, check that off. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was so fun that when we did at the end of 2021 and into 2022, I don't know how we missed the next year after that. Maybe life happened, but to see that last year.
Yeah.
And then to be at the end of the year, and I think we started reviewing, we kind of really started our review in November. So in November, to be able to watch that video back in the end of December, early January, we're talking about what we hope to have accomplished. And exactly what you said, like checking it off.
Yeah.
And seeing you could see the glimmer in our eye about all the things that were upcoming. And then to have lived it, it's just such a cool experience.
Let me ask you this, because before we get into the review of 2025 and prepping for 2020, or review of 2024, prepping for the 2025, how do you go about just tracking things throughout the year? Because I think that's a big thing to even give kind of insights about for people that are thinking about doing this process. Like, just how do you keep track of the things that are going on and what is done?
I mean, there's a million different options, and there's probably a million different books, podcasts, YouTube videos on how to do it. For me, I like to keep it as simple as possible. The KISS method, we've talked about the KISS method a lot with our metrics because I think that we're all such busy professionals that if you have a complicated system,
Agreed.
I just think it's going to reduce the likelihood of getting it done. Now, if your complicated system works, keep doing it.
Yeah.
So I literally have a journal entry, like I have one right here, where I just put the date and then bullet points of things that were memorable. And memorable is such like a big word. Maybe just things that happened. Maybe it's one step, we always talk about 1 degree change. Maybe it's a 1 degree change. Or maybe somebody said something at a conference that I thought was like, ooh, that's a good info nugget. I write that down. Or maybe something good happened. And it could be something as regular as it being payday. Today's payday, today's Friday. So you write down payday. So then I have a little fun system of coding where I have a B for books, C for career, F for finances, I for ideas, and then kind of like music and entertainment. And then I might use another one for BBC, which is, anything going on with you and I with Beachy Bauman Consulting. And so I don't know, it looks like we have on here from September 13th of 2024, positive annual evaluation with Angela, which is my boss. So that was, and I put a C next to it. That's just,
so
one example.
And tracking, and that's a similar thing that I try to do as well, is just having a journal or just a planner that then you go back and review. And as you said a little bit earlier, we start this process of reviewing really at the beginning of November. We start looking through, and we even use, we're big into music and using music during certain work things. And so even looking at our most kind of downloaded or listened to music that we do, and even reviewing that, and that almost it's really fun when you do that because it almost transport you back in time when you listen to certain songs. Like, oh, I remember what I was doing.
Yeah, the red integration from the not GRE, EPPP. I don't know if red integration would be on there, but it's basically exactly what Dave's describing, that a certain smell or certain taste will take you right back in time. And so music is a great way to take you back in time.
To kind of prompt you for that. And you know what's super interesting? Whenever we do this process, my mind is always amazed about how much we habituate to things just being normal. In preparing for this corner, Bridget sent over some things, some outlines, which we're going to get into a little bit. And the one that you put on here that when I was writing down mine, that didn't even make my list, and would have been something that I feel like you asked me 5 or 10 years ago, if this would have been a major accomplishment, it would have like maybe topped like the major accomplishments was APA accreditation for 10 years, for our internship. That didn't even make it on my list of things that to be excited about. So I think
How did you do your list?
Well, it's similar, that I went back through kind of journals, I went back through CV, doing videos, whatever it might be, and I just wrote down the different things that my mind really latched onto or came up with. That one didn't make my list. And so it's another reason why the importance of tracking things and trying to make sure there's stimulus control to remember these things, because we just habituate and we're like, oh, yeah, that wasn't a big deal. It's like, no, that was a really big deal. Like, that was a really big thing that came up this year that we were able to knock out of the park.
And I feel like I was being a little bit meandering with explaining my process, so sorry about that. But basically, I make the journal entries I try to do 5-6 days a week. If I could do 7, that'd be best, but at least 5 or 6 days, and then write down little bullet points. And then when certain things see my eye, and I'm like, oh, I'm writing it or reading a new book, then I put a B next to it, or listening to new music, put an M next to it. And then if something good in the career happens, you put a C next to it. And then at the end of the year, that's where I go and we start that process in November.
Right.
And I just have those categories of the music, the books, the trips and destination, finances, and career. And I basically just go back through the journal and coalesce it into a list.
And it's another time of making these things that, again, we habituate so regularly to make them not normal, to make them not routine, to bring them to the forefront.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the things, we talk about this regularly within our, anytime we talk about like burnout or, what keeps us engaged, is that what our minds predict a lot of times is that we're just missing all these different things to celebrate a lot.
They're right in front of us.
Right in front of us. They become too normal. We don't recognize them the same way that we used to do it. So any ways that we could do that, journaling, tracking it, having a coding system is a great way to do it. So let's get into it. Let's get into this from 2024 before we start to jump into what we're excited about 2025. What does your mind go to, like, really stands out from 2024?
Yeah. So, I wrote them down because I knew that I was going to struggle
I did as well
with this. But definitely the contextual interview article that we did with Amber Cahill and Matt Martin, the cross-cutting patient interviewing approach for social context, that was actually published in medical education online for medical providers. That was kind of the audience, is kind of teaching medical providers how to do love, work, play. But as we know, any providers working in primary care, that could be very helpful.
Can I pause you on that one too? I mean, I think that's one that when I think back on 2024 will be a mainstay throughout, is this. I think you came up with Access V in 2023, actually. It might have even been late.
Yeah, it may have been
2022. I feel like this year was a year of intentionality, of honing in, talking about Access V regularly, how to use it, coming up with the algorithm, the filter, the contextual interview and Access V filter. And what's great about that article is that it's even led to people from the UK reaching out and wanting us to talk to their medical students about using Access V when they're working with patients. So that, I really like that you highlighted that, because even though Access V is one that predates 2024, I feel like 2024 is the year, though, of Access V that we really
we articulated it a lot better. And then the other one is actually a lot of the work that we had done in 2023 was the book chapter that you spearheaded and I helped with about the history of, how did we do things at CHCW? How did this all happen as much as we could from our memory? And then that came out in Naftali's PCBH Implementer Guide edition 2, and that came out in February.
It was cool to see the hard copy of it at the CFHA conference, and also we were just flying back from our yearly trip to the East Coast and visiting family, and I was reading it on the plane just to kind of refresh. I was like, oh my gosh, like, we literally wrote everything that we could about that. So I agree, that was a big accomplishment there.
And then I have written down connections with single session folks, Jeff Young from Australia and Jessica Schleider, which is really key and has made the single session influence, has been there all along, but most specifically when Jeff Ryder back in 2020 brought Robert Rosenbaum into the fold and kind of started talking about how these two mentalities can really work together to make PCBH pop, so to speak, as we put in one of our PCBH corners as it being the secret sauce. But we made stronger connections with Jeff Young and Jessica Schleider, and that's been really important in the materials that we've done during our training materials. And that's one of the cool things about doing these reviews is like thinking about 2025. I know I'm jumping the gun here, but like what connections are we going to have looking back at the end of 2025 as we're looking to 2026 that we're like, oh my gosh, if we don't have this connection, this whole entire training batch doesn't even happen.
Well, it's something that I couldn't agree more, and it's another reason why we love doing the PCBH corners, and especially bringing on guests to like be able to pick their minds and talk with them, and then that usually leads to other connections and just other ideas that come up. I couldn't agree more, and I wrote down related to that, and we talked a little bit about Access V. I feel like the other thing that 2024 is going to be remembered from my view, is our I've used this word already, but I'm going to use it again because are honing in on what is like the secret sauces of PCBH.
Yes.
Functional contextualism, primary care, and this third one that really rounds it out is this single session approach, taking that mindset, almost what amplifies PCBH to be successful. And I think if we don't make those connections with Jeff Young, I mean, how much do we use what Jeff Young said to us, and then in his book, the No Bullshit Therapy, about therapy lovers, therapy haters. Everybody's already doing single session. Just go look at your data. Like, there's a lot of things now we use in our presentations that are directly from him.
And Jeff, that came from the PCBH corner. No, or was it the conversation leading up to the?
It was a conversation
PCBH
leading
corner.
up to the PCBH.
And he said, one of us asked him, like, how do you convince people? And it's like, oh, you don't convince people. You have them look up their data and show it to you. So without that little nugget,
huge.
Then so much of what we're doing doesn't even.
And think about Jester Slider's book, Little Treatments, Big Effects, that really hones in when the main takeaway that I took away from that book was when we get curious about asking the community about what they want out about behavioral health care, it's drastically different than what we give them, right? Yeah. About this care that's accessible right away, that allows people to feel listened and understood, that's dynamic and flexible, not rigid and protocolized, that's focusing on psychohealth rather than psychopathology, gives options, all these different things. That was a huge takeaway and now enters in every single one of our trainings.
I was going to say, you've done a really good job of being able to integrate that into our trainings. And we had the idea for PCBH week number 4 back in 2023.
Yeah.
Where we wanted to distill some of the secret sauces, some of the mindset shifts and the philosophies. We talk about being chefs versus being cooks. And in order to be a chef, a PCBH chef, that's where we came in and we said, you and I had culled it down to functional contextualism, to a primary care mindset, to single session therapies. And then, of course, within that, we're going to be using our old reliable, which is the contextual interview, but now it's infused with Access V. And now we're going to be adding for 2025 another little sprinkle, which is going to be the clinician stance, which we talked about a little bit in episode 91, about the clinician stance that you're taking into Access V, into the contextual interview, which of course we know is all in that functional contextualism realm. But the PCBH week number 4 is kind of something that we had been dreaming about and culling together. And so to be able to execute that in August was super great. And then doing our ELO for CFHA on a mini, I think we did kind of a mini version of that.
We did a mini version of that. And that also leads to another great thing that we were able to do in 2024, which is your brainchild of the PCBH lab. And we had 2 labs through CFHA, and they were this implementation of PCBH. And we just had 2 great groups, of very engaged people, very inquisitive personnel that I feel like we did a great job teaching it and training everything we wanted to do. And I think there was a lot of teaching and training from the other cohorts to each other, like each member of the cohorts sharing ideas and brainstorming and stuff. It was just a really cool experience, and I'm excited for the 3rd one and hopefully the 4th one coming in 2025.
Yeah, our PCBH implementation lab cohort 1 and 2, we had never done that ever.
Yeah.
That was the first time that we had done a course in that specific context. Now, of course, we always do our PCBH weeks, and we have 4 of those where we're, teaching CEUs and teaching this course online. But this was a different type. This had a lot more structure to it. It had a whole curriculum that we had to put together, and then each group was slightly different. So it's kind of a dynamic curriculum. So that was really, really cool. So shout out, I guess, it is self-promotional, but we can do that because it's our PCBH corner for the cohort number 3, which will start in February.
And shout out, I will say, to CFHA. You know, I've been so grateful for CFHA over the past, number of years that we've been involved. But definitely this past year, I'm looking to the future of 2025. I know we're continuing to jump back and forth between 2024 and predicting of 2025. But I'm really looking forward to 2025, doing the PCBH labs, also getting to roll out a single session training that people will be able to do, and then doing the PCBH basics. It's going to be an asynchronous kind of people studying at their own pace that we're going to be able to roll out. I'm just really excited about that. That's going to be another.
I haven't even thought much about that.
I know. I was reflecting about just things that I'm really looking forward to. Those are 2 things that I'm extremely excited about moving forward.
And we are going back and forth because they are interrelated. You know, it's kind of a made up, if you want to use that word, to say, okay, December 31st is the end and January 1st is the start. But you and I have taken 4 days in January for our Beachy Bauman Consulting Retreat.
Yep.
Where we're specifically, block those days to be able to talk about really intentionally, because obviously, we're working our day job. We have Beachy Bauman Consulting. We have all these projects coming, and we want to be able to execute on what we say we're going to do and be able to prioritize and figure out how are we going to execute all these things that we're interested in. And so I'm really looking forward to those 4 days here coming up in January of 2025.
I wrote that down as well, that I was really excited about that. Some of the other things that topped my list, looking at CHCW specifically, I know we were talking a lot about Beachy Bauman and some of the trainings. I just put out to the listserv the data dump of the year, and it really is amazing about just seeing the data that's coming out, especially this year, that we did almost 4,000 more visits than we did last year. In that year was almost 2,000 more visits than we ever done the years before. So over 18,000 visits. The PCBH team averaging 9 visits per day. The amount of handoffs almost reaching 6,000 handoffs. The amount of patients that we saw for the first time ever, we were over 6,000 unique patients within Yakima, which is a really interesting thing when you start doing the math about how many people live in Yakima. The penetration rate that we achieved, almost 26% throughout CHCW, over 30% at a mothership clinic at CWFM. There was just a lot of great data. And then combining that data with, it's not just about, there is a part of primary care that is about seeing people. That is, as we've always said, highly productive, being accessible. So all those numbers are important. And when we start looking at some of the quality metrics, as far as whether it be patient engagement or even some of the quality metrics that we just got recently that our health center is doing, we're seeing, not only are we seeing a lot of people are loving the service, as well as PCPs loving the service. And maybe my favorite thing is that even going through a tough year at CHCW just financially, employee engagement of our team continues to be extremely high, continues to be very high. So that's, I would say those are really big wins for 2024, I feel like, from that data.
Oh, absolutely. And, one of the things that I had written on the sheet about CHCW was just this unprecedented amount of coverage. And that creates different problems now, which are good problems. Very good problems. I'm not complaining. But in some cases, we'll have 7 BHCs on.
Oh, for sure.
And so, rethinking things and looking at things and doing more pairing.
I put that down.
Is going to be big. Being able to, we're taking over basically the BHC support for our Connect program, which is the medically assisted treatment. And so that, I think, is going to be something that we're going to see a lot more into 2025. I think having really good recruitment, but also retention is very important. I know that the PCBH SIG at CFHA did a presentation about sustainability and longevity in PCBH, because is this all about just launching the service and then having everybody work like men and women, and then just saying like, oh, we haven't really thought about what we do after the startup phase.
Right.
Like, how are we going to retain people? How are we going to make this like a job that is sustainable 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? I mean, I want 30 years, 40 years. I want the BHC role to be just as strong as a pediatrician or a family doc, where they say, hey, I've been a pediatrician for 40 years. I've been a family doc for 35 years. I've been a BHC for 35 years. Like, that's what I want. It's not about, well, I became a BHC and then I became a director and then I hopped around. I started up all these, organizations and their services. And then, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I would like to see the longevity of that.
That's a really good idea about even like some presentations that we should start to think about for future CFHAs or other conferences about like really getting people that have been doing this for a decade and having them talk about it. Because you're absolutely right.
Well, that's what Jeff was trying to do with his panels. But yes.
Yeah, no, I love that idea to really show that. I love how you said it got me hyped with like just like a pediatrician is for 30 years, like a BHC is for 30 years. And similar, and we've had talks with our CEO, and I think this is another a win or reflection of 2024 that both of us report to our CEO now directly and how much that's kind of changed aspects and conversations in a lot of ways.
That was a big one.
And her saying, to us, it's like, hey, what would it look like if every patient was just assigned a BHC that came in, almost like this is how we do care. That your care is a team of a PCP and a BHC. That it's not an exception anymore. Like it's the expectation when you enroll into CHCW, it's a PCP and a BHC.
And just the way that you're assigned a PCP, and then you might work with another PCP.
Yes.
So if they come in and they're assigned a blue team, so they're assigned to you, and say on a warm handoff they end up seeing me, that's okay too. And over time, if it ends up being a more consistent thing, then we might want to consider moving them to purple team or something.
Right.
Or not. I don't know. Those would be big questions that would need to be answered.
And I love the fact, like you said, like the amount of BHCs, the amount of people power that we have now, it's creating new problems. I was just talking to my one fellow yesterday about this idea of, hey, now we got to do a different skill set than a little way. You and I, we had to do this back in the day because no one was using us. So we had to start really cold crash. So that's not why we're doing it now. Now we have so many people now. So now you have to do a different skill set, maybe more do cold crashing, more pairing. Like how do you get more into asthma and even like all these different things that we know are behavioral influence, but we don't pay attention to as much because we just don't have the people power to do it. Now it's like, oh, how do we get into those visits?
Well, especially if they're quality metrics on the medical side.
Heck yeah.
Like why not, why not help with that? The other thing that I'm really looking forward to, I guess both. Excited about from 2024, excited about to do in 2025 is the professional presentations. So we presented at APA for the first time in 2024.
Cracked that finally, huh?
Yeah.
After years of being denied. And
Is that what happened?
I think there was a couple times then, we were like, we're not going to apply to there anymore. But this year we're like, no, we're going to do it again. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, now, don't get me started. But we were able to do that, and that was in Seattle, so that was cool. And then we were able to do the IIBHN, so I'm going to mess up.
Oh, the Idaho, yeah.
Idaho Integration Behavioral Health Network. Yep. I got it.
Nice. That was actually really impressive.
So that was good. And then I was able to do a webinar for APA Division 38, so, virtual webinar, which was really good. And then we had a presentation at CFHA spring event. We got the IIBHN, CFHA, of course, the annual event in the fall, the spring event, which was virtual, APA, which was in Seattle in August. So I'm really looking forward to CFHA 2025.
In Raleigh, it's going to be a fun time. The one I'm really looking forward to, I wish we could be there in person, but I'm glad we're able to do it virtually, is the single session conference with Just for Sliders team in Chicago.
Yeah.
That we're going to be able to present at. And I'm really looking forward to, because this is the one thing, single sessions, we always say, like, it's not a primary care thing. Like single session, like it's more of traditional mental health that has come up with single session. And Jessica's saying, it's like, hey, it would be great for you all to present because there's not a lot of people knowing about like what's happening in primary care from the single session side. So
it's
really showing the synergy that these two kind of philosophies have.
I can't wait to share that synergy. And then you and I have our University of Arkansas
I forgot about that.
conference that will be in February of 2025. So I'm definitely
people going to that too.
Looking forward to that. Yep. And then, it's on our list for our retreat. I would like to do PCBH week number 5. Mm-hmm. Not sure what that's going to look like, but I am excited about that. And then, of course, our Beachy Bauman Consulting, super excited to continue with our videos. We had our biggest year on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you for watching and sharing those videos. Yeah,
I know we don't talk a lot about like like and comment and
We will never
subscribe.
do that. It just feels weird.
Yeah, isn't that, here, we're
Click
not
the
gonna,
link. Yeah.
click the link. We're actually not going to put that in there. But it does help to be able to share, because what happens with YouTube is if different people are watching it, it sees, audiences like this, so then it'll make it more easily searchable. It will pop up, so people would have more access to some of our videos. I'm excited for that. And then to do our on-site work. I'm really, really excited to continue our work with Michigan Primary Care Association, as well as Montana Primary Care Association.
The Dakotas.
The Community Health Association of the Dakotas. And then, of course, working virtually with a few other organizations.
Yeah, some of the other things that I wrote down,
what else you got?
Just reflecting on some, the one thing that I really liked about this year that we got into a little bit more, and it seems like we have one training already set up this coming year and hopefully going to expand out, is that we're focusing on that really great presentation you developed about how to love your craft without losing your mind. And I was just talking to Angela, our CEO, about this yesterday, about taking a different approach to this conversation about wellness and healthcare and all these different things. Almost like my mind's gonna beat me up for maybe saying this. Give me grace, love, and compassion if this comes off a certain way. But oftentimes when we talk about wellness, we come from a deficit mindset. It's like, we're losing out on all these things versus, hey,
it's so hard, and it's so traumatic, and
exactly. Versus kind of like what I was able to talk to our residents about in December, where the honor that it is to be able to work with the communities that we get to work with. About how much that is a sacred opportunity that we lose out on so much. Like, again, another thing, like we were talking about at the beginning of this, like we just forget like what it is, what it means.
It becomes routine.
I just had a patient visit yesterday where this individual has been clean from substances for 10 months. And it was when he started seeing us, and he said at the end, again, he said, I can't overstate how much you all being here and giving me care has meant. Like, he said, he's like, I don't know what's allowed me to keep my sobriety for 10 months. He's like, undoubtedly, these visits have contributed to that. And it's like, that's something that we hear decent amount. And if we lose sight of that, like it becomes, that erodes us, So I really like that we're doing that a little bit more about giving a different viewpoint. I don't like the term wellness, but giving a different viewpoint of engagement. How can we keep engaged with jobs and careers that can be taxing, can be hard, and they can be very value congruent?
Yeah, mining and cultivating those wins and those important moments. And it doesn't even have to be win with a capital W either.
Yeah.
It could be, your win could be that you were deeply connected with a patient.
Hell yeah.
It doesn't necessarily always have to be, that's a great story that they're 10 months clean and sober, and that's great. But it doesn't always have to be this huge behavior change. The fact that even if somebody was like in the midst of struggling and maybe their PHQ score would be through the roof, and by all, objective purposes, maybe they're not doing so great. But they're still coming in to see you, and they're still coming in to see the PCP team, and they are keeping a level of engagement. And they say, hey, thank you for being here. I don't know where I'd be without you. That counts too.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That absolutely counts. And then we know that degree of change in that moment that could ripple out exponentially in different ways.
Yeah.
That's, something.
And the honor too. Not to get stuck on, but the honor of
absolutely
of being able, that like in our job, it gives us the opportunities to connect with a human in their most vulnerable moments, whether or not they get better or not. It's still an honor.
The last couple things that my mind went to as far as reflections, and then next year, we read a lot of books this year, and it's another thing that always I have such gratitude for you for bestowing that. It's like, hey, read often. What's that quote? Not all readers lead, but all leaders read, and how important that is. And there was some good ones this year as far as the Little Treatments, Big Effects, the No Bullshit Therapy, Thinking in Bets, just a lot of great books this year that I've been really grateful for. I feel like we've continued our investment, and hopefully next year as well, as far as travel and making sure, that book that was from a couple years ago about rest and how to use your PTO and the importance of rest. We've again kept that. We're busy people. We like what we do, so we work a lot of hours, and we take a lot of PTO, and we travel.
We do take our PTO.
So I think that's a really great thing. And I also like that this year, within that traveling, we've had such a great moments with our friends, with our families, of connecting regularly on weekend trips, on maybe week-long trips with other people, which has been really great. And I'm glad that this past year of 2024, and I hope to continue this to 2025, and we've already set some goals about this, is the health focus of, after reading that book, The 5 a.m. Club, about being like, hey, if working out's important to us, like we got to work out first thing in the morning to get, that's been a really cool part of 2024 that I'm hoping to continue to 2025. And then lastly is I got to do the executive coaching, and I know Naftali was talking about this on the CFHA podcast, and that was an incredible experience for me. Learned a lot, and that I think also started this ripple of reinvigorating, re-energizing me for some of the academic pursuits that we're going to try to do at CHCW next year. I'm really excited when we do this video in 2025 to reflect on, hey, were we able to achieve some of the academic things that we were really setting out to do in 2025 at CHCW?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, we've been reading pretty regularly, or at least you have. Do you remember what year that's been? I think I've been doing pretty regularly since 2016, 2017.
I think it started 2019 is when I started the dabble. 2020 is when I was really setting goals, the past 4 years, about how many books I want to read and moving forward.
And then I think we had started our journaling a little bit over 4 years ago, because it was during 2020, during COVID. And so I think that was just so eye-opening to be the importance of writing things down, the importance of journaling, the importance of tracking, the importance of celebrating these wins, to be able to close a chapter on one part and then look to the future, I think is a really valuable exercise, and I'm really glad that we've been able to do it. One of the things I'm really looking forward to in 2025 is there's all this energy and all this innovation. I'm excited to kind of start getting it more focused.
Ooh.
Yeah, just honing the craft on leadership.
The one book, we've talked about this, that I read, that talked a lot about efficiencies and making sure limiting waste. That's something I'm really excited about too. Honing the craft, just evolving, iterating it. I'm really excited about that too.
Yeah, and we've explored so many different domains, and we have so many, had so many interests in so many different areas. And I think that's great during the exploration. But what so much of the books are talking about is really to be able to prioritize it. If you're going to get the most out of something, you really do have to kind of prioritize it. And so I think that because we did so much, that I kind of know what I like.
Oh yeah.
And what I don't like, what I'm interested in, what I'm not interested in, more now in end of 2024, now into 2025, more so. So I'm excited to see when we watch this video,
yes,
future Bridget, in November or December of 2025. It'll just be, and I'm not going to put pressure on myself, but it'll just be interesting to see, do I say yes to more of what I know that I like? Ooh. And do I say no, or give to other people projects that I'm not as interested in? And does that have a payoff? And I know it has a payoff because I've already done some of that. But I'm excited to continue that journey, and I'm excited to learn more about myself in this process of what do I really want to do versus what somebody else, quite frankly, A, might be better
correct
at, and B, they might like to do.
And again, like you said, it really might engage them more.
Yeah.
They like doing that stuff. When it's or over here, it's oh my gosh, I can't stand doing this.
And that goes for everything, both CHCW, consulting,
Agreed.
Training. We have enough of a team, just like at CHCW as a whole, that if I say this all the time in our meetings, if somebody doesn't want to do something, look around, because there's 20-something people here, and that might be what is necessary in their career trajectory.
My favorite thing about looking forward to 2025 that I'll end on, we talked about this in the video last year, a 1-to-1 ratio of PCPs to BHCs. And I tell you what, we're getting closer and closer to that, and I'm excited to see some of those iterations. So, as always, thank you for watching and being a part of an incredible year of 2024. As always, please share your wins and your reflections from 2024 and goals and things that you're excited about for 2025. We definitely love hearing them and want to hear them, but as always, this is really fun to do.
Yeah, I wanted to do my final little sweep here.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just to make sure I didn't miss anything.
You know the one that I just, as you're looking, I really like that you wrote down about Anne coming. What was on? Was it Anne?
Anna.
Anna. Yeah, Anna from Sweden that came, and she spent some time with us. And the reason why I really love that you did that, prior to COVID, we had people regularly be coming and spending like a couple weeks, a month. In Anna, she spent what, almost 2 months.
Yeah.
So we have another visitor from Spain next year that's going to be spending some time with us in the fall. So it's cool to see those things start coming back a little bit.
And Anna was from Sweden, and she did 2 months here with us. Well, I think it was closer to 5 or 6 weeks.
I was gonna, as soon as I said 2 months,
Yeah,
I think it got cut short a little
I think it was like
bit.
5 weeks. And then we also had Suzanne Fuzzard, another single session folk, who had come and I believe was with us in 2023.
Yes, yeah.
And she did her write-up for the Winston Churchill Award that she was granted in Australia. The write-up came out in 2024.
It was cool to read her reflections about her time.
So I think I got everything. Sorry, we did the whole, end, but then we're not ending, mic drop, but not mic drop.
Well, that's always.
But I didn't really want to forget anything because, when we go to the end of the year and we watch this, I just wanted to make sure we got everything.
Absolutely. Well, again, as always, thanks for stopping by. Again, let us know your reflections, what you're hoping for 2025. Any final things?
Nope.
All right. Take care, y'all.